Hello everyone, my name is Bethany Jacobsen, and for my social media project, I want to talk about the evolution of music playing machines throughout history. A little reason why I chose this topic is because music is just something that's always been interesting to me. I love listening to music, and so I thought it'd be really interesting to learn about how we started from the phonograph and got to where we are today with our iPhones that can play music pretty much off of any streaming app that we want. So each lesson will go through different time periods of when we have records, when we have CDs, tapes, things like that. So we'll get started. So the first topic and what we'll be talking about today is the time period of records. This includes the phonograph, the graphophone, and the gramophone. Those are very similar things, and we'll talk about why that is. And then the record player, which is a big deal because record players still exist in our society today. A lot of people think it's really fun to collect records and play them on their record player. Artists now can still produce records and make money off of those. So those are really awesome. We'll talk about how those have shaped our musical history and how we started from the phonograph and got to the record player. So we first have the phonograph. This was invented in 1877 by Thomas Edison. He completely changed music and how people were able to listen to music. Before, people could only listen to music live in person. There was no way of recording it, taking it home with you. So this was a completely revolutionary invention in music and in, technology. The phonograph was revolutionary because this was the first reliable sound device that could record and play back music and sounds. Before, there were some other inventions, but they weren't as good. You could record it and play it back, but it didn't sound good. It was hard to hear. It was almost inaudible. So this one, the phonograph was huge because now people can listen to music that they might have heard from another state. They can listen to a comedy show or a talk show that they heard from somewhere else. And so that was a huge deal. The way it works is the phonograph transfers sounds to an embossing point and then mechanically onto an impressionable medium. First, he started off with paraffin paper, and then later it's changed into a tinfoil wrapped cylinder. And that's kind of how you can see where it's turning into a record. You start with this paper thing, and then it's tinfoil, and eventually that will lead into a record and using the record player. So now you can see why the phonograph started the evolution to the sound recording era. So now we are on to the graphophone and the gramophone. So the graphophone was invented shortly before the gramophone by Alexander Graham Bell. He chose to improve Edison's design of the phonograph, and so he created the graphophone. It was different because it used wax cylinders instead of the tinfoil cylinders, but the issue with this was that each cylinder had to be recorded separately. So they could not be mass-produced. It took a very long time to produce each wax cylinder, and so it was very difficult to get those produced rapidly. And so, since the wax cylinders were not able to be mass-produced, in 1887, Emil Berliner comes in. He wants to improve Bell's design, and he creates the gramophone. And the gramophone is very similar to the graphophone, except that it uses flat glass records. And those little records have small grooves etched onto the surface. And that kind of just sounds like what we have as a record today. It's just different materials. We don't use glass anymore. We use a different material. And so these glass records allowed for faster production. We were able to mass produce them, which of course everyone likes. And so that is how we got the gramophone. So we now arrive to the record player in 1895. This was also called the turntable, and Columbia Records mastered the manufacturing process of a double-sided shellac record in 1908. There were other companies that have done this, that were doing it before them, but they were the ones who kind of figured it out in the most efficient way and mastered it first. You'll notice I didn't give a credit to a specific inventor because this is just an extension of the gramophone. People were just basically improving upon Berliner's gramophone, and now we have what we have today as the turntable or the record player. So the best part about this technology that was coming from the gramophone first was that it allowed artists to reproduce a single track multiple times. You know, this is like what I was talking about before with mass production. Before, with the wax records, artists were having to record a track multiple times for each wax record. That, of course, takes such a long time, and so this was a big time saver. It allowed for faster production. And then we have in the 1920s, the radio enters, and it caused some challenges with the record industry because, you know, the radio is a lot cheaper. If you're listening to the radio, you're hearing songs for free over a broadcast system, whereas if you have a turntable or record player, you have to buy the actual machine itself and then buy records. So the radio kind of gave the record player a run for its money, but we'll talk about that a little bit more in the next video. But the good news is the record player has definitely made a comeback. We now have our modern turntable. As you can see, I put some pictures up. The one on the left is kind of like the oldest version I could find of a more flat looking record player. And then on the right, we have our modern turntable that people buy all the time now. In fact, vinyl sales are the highest they have been since 1980. And a lot of that is because people like the idea of it, the antique aspect of it. But it has been very successful, and of course it is one of the most notable inventions in music history, I would say, and it continues to be a product that people enjoy and want to use. Thank you guys so much for watching my video. I had a great time doing it. I loved learning about the record era of music. And in the next video, we'll be talking about the radio era, which is another super interesting topic. And so we will see you guys next time.